Bubs. Hey. Hi, guys. Oh, are you leaving? Goodbye. All right, I guess it's just us now. Before we get started with our episode, we're going to hear from our sponsor. As you guys can see, or I guess hear, for those that can't see me, I'm traveling and I'm not home. But do you want to know the very first thing that I put in my suitcase? Every single piece of Skims that I own. Because as we know, I'm all about comfort. Hands down, my favorite thing to wear. Please just trust me and please just invest in Skims. Just try it. Just try it. Like, if you don't like it, you can blame me, but I don't think you'll not like it. I think you're going to love it. It's just so comfy and soft and breathable. And even though it comes in the package and it looks so tiny and you're like, how is this gonna fit on my body? It does. I don't know what magic they put in the fabric, but it's there. So shop Skims Fits Everybody collection at skims.com and in Skims stores. Available in sizes from XX small to 4X. And after you place your order, be sure to let them know that I sent you. Select podcast in the survey, and be sure to select my show in the Dropbox that follows. I love working with them and I want to keep doing it. It's just so comfy. It feels like I'm wearing a hug, so get your hug. Now let's get started with this week's episode. I don't know why I'm so nervous. It's not like I've never just sat and talked with you guys before. Maybe it's because this is all about me, and that makes me kind of self-conscious. But okay, here we go. I told you guys that at this giant milestone in my life, I kind of reflected and realized that the person that I was when I started content to now, although I feel like it's the same person, like I don't even know how to explain it. Like I feel like the same person, because it's always been one of my biggest flexes, is that my best friends that have known me for my whole life tell me that one of their favorite things about me is that when I started content to now, like I'm still the same goofball they met 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you know what I mean? But I feel like the things that I've learned about myself and who I am to myself is so different, if that makes any sense. But because of those realizations and because of all of the not just changes in my life, but also the new friends we've made along the way who might have dropped in at the tail end of, oh my gosh, this is the biggest life change ever. I wanted to go ahead and reintroduce myself or introduce myself to anyone who's been around, who's new here. Hello. My name is Rebecca Rogers, and I asked everyone on all of my platforms, you know, whether it be Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all the things. I asked, what is it that you never learned about me? What are things that either you haven't seen my answers to these questions, or I never even thought to answer them, or I never thought to give you guys this background information on me. And it's so funny because I have a podcast where literally I talk about everybody else, you know, where they started, what they're doing, their lives, their jobs, and I guess I've never made one about me. So I figured that's what we do today. I looked at all the questions and I kind of made like a roadmap that I thought would make sense on my computer. I can't talk. I'm so nervous. I don't know why. And I have, so I have a little timeline roadmap, and then I have a last section, if we haven't spent too much time here, if I haven't rambled too much, of like miscellaneous little questions, fun little things that you guys just asked for funsies, So I guess we will get started. Oh, you're back. Hi, Bubs. I love you too, my dear. My sweet poops. All right. Again, my name is Rebecca Rogers. I grew up in North Carolina. I'm not going to get into too many specifics. Like, it's always so weird because I see people all the time in comments like, I saw you at the store, or I know you live in this city, or I know you live around here. And it's like, okay, are you trying to scare me? Like, I don't know what you're trying to say. Like, stranger danger is a thing. People don't feel safe when you tell them I know where you live. So, like, if you see me out and about, like, that's great. I would love, people come say hi to me all the time. I love that. But I'll never understand the people that are like, well, why don't you just say that you live here? Well, I'm not going to do that because you should never tell people on the internet where you live. That's scary. Don't do that. That's stranger danger, kids. But I have two parents, my mom and my dad, Michelle and Gilly, and they're the best. I don't even know like how much, like what to share about like other people in my family, you know? Because like I asked for my life to be public, but they didn't. I probably should have called them and asked them. My mom is from Louisiana. She was a nurse. One of the reasons that nurses, like we have a lot of nurse episodes on my podcast because I just appreciate nurses so much. There's a lot of nurses in my family. She's from Louisiana. We do all the Mardi Gras stuff, still have a lot of family there. My dad is from Israel, and I honestly, like anytime I say that online, I always get so many people that are like, why would you say that? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm sorry, are people able to control where they're born? Like, were you able to control where you're born? Like, I don't understand that, you know? No one asks for that. No one asks to be born into a hotspot nation. You know, like that's not how that works. And in fact, I think that mentality, there's already so much hate in the world and there's so much danger in violence. Are we really going to add, like, you just so happen to be born in this area, you should fear for your life kind of thing? Like, enough people experience that. I feel like that's a very, very unfair thing to put on somebody that they have no control over. So, with that being said, I did grow up Jewish. Religion in faith has always been like a weird thing for me. So I'm not going to, it's like just really complicated. That's something that like even to my close personal friends and family, I have difficulty really explaining. Because I always get comments asking like, what do you celebrate? What do you believe? And I think the bottom line is like, I don't know. I personally, I believe in God. I have my own relationship with him. That's as far as I got. That's what I know. I personally am not for like going to church or temple. I personally feel, I know not everyone is like this, but I don't feel like I have to prove my relationship with God or a faith or anything like that to other people. And I feel like that's what a lot of people use those facilities for. And that's just not my vibe. And if I know, I'm not saying everybody, people that I've experienced at those institutions. And it's for some people, it's just not me. You know what I mean? But I also have a little brother. His name is Ethan. He is 3 years younger than me. And when we were kids, let me tell you, we hated each other. Oh my God, we hated each other growing up. So like, it's one of those things where like we did a lot together, but we were like, oil and water. We fought all the time. We didn't really get along. Looking back, I feel like it wasn't as bad as many people's like, oh, my sister and I hate each other, my brother and I hated each other. But compared to the relationship we have now, it just feels so drastically different, I guess. I genuinely thought it was normal for people to feel close with their siblings. And I know, you know, brothers have their own relationship, sisters have their own relationship. I didn't realize how many brother-sister dynamics just aren't close. Like, I thought it was really normal to feel like the best of friends with your sibling. And it wasn't until this past year, actually, we went to Mexico. Let me tell you. Okay, I think I've told this before somewhere, but I don't know, maybe I didn't. So about a year ago, my brother's, one of his best friends got engaged, and they decided they wanted to get married in Mexico. Super fun, right? It's one of those weddings that you have to plan for in advance. And my brother at the time, he was single, and he thought, you know what? No way in a year I'm not gonna have someone to go with, right? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna book the non-refundable package for 2 people, and it's gonna be so great, it's gonna be so fun, and yeah, we're gonna do this. And he was right. He did meet a wonderful woman. Her name is Shayna. I love them together. Like, I could not ask for a better partner for my brother, truly. I love them together. They're about to celebrate their 1 year. I love it so much. But Shayna's a girl boss. She's wonderful. She's getting her PhD, and she had classes like the day after the wedding. So there was no way that she'd be able to get back in time. So she couldn't go. And I, being the merciful, loving sister that I am, just threw myself on the sword and offered to chaperone my brother because I'm so kind. He's so lucky to have me. Of course I was like, I know you paid for this, but like, I'm gonna help you cover this because that's expensive and I appreciate you letting me come. And while we were there, like we had the best time. We had so much fun. And my brother and I travel well together. Like this was not the first time we've traveled together. I've taken him to California with me a couple times when we've traveled. We were gonna go to New York earlier this year and my schedule just got a little, but my brother and I travel pretty well together. And while we were there, his friends were just talking about, oh, I could never go on a trip like that with my sister. Like, we hate each other. And hearing everyone kind of like nod and hearing them nod in agreement, I guess, seeing them nod in agreement and hearing them like agree and kind of, talking to other friends about it, I guess I just didn't realize how special the friendship that my brother and I have is. And I cherish that. Like, I already cherished it, but it really made me appreciate it even more. I just love him to bits and pieces. I'm gonna start crying. I'm a very emotional person, if you haven't caught on to that in the last few years that I've been online. Like my brother, I call him all the time and I make him sit and listen to me yap. And then if I go out of town and I forget to tell him and he doesn't hear from me for a little bit, he'll call me and he's like, are you good? I just haven't heard from you. I just want to make sure that you're okay. And I'm like, oh my God, you do love when I call you. He does. He can say he doesn't, but he does. And yeah, because I grew up here, a lot of the lifelong friends that I have obviously like kept. Like I'm someone that, I love to keep my friends, and I feel like that sounds weird because like who doesn't want to keep their friends, you know what I mean? But for me, when I choose like, hey, I want someone in my life, I want someone to be like in my inner circle, like for me that's like a permanent thing. Like I don't take that lightly. And so, a lot of the non-content friends, like the people who've really been with me forever, you'll see them a lot, like recurring a lot, or you'll see me talk about them a lot in other content, whether it be, Anna or Lauren or Sarah or Brittany or Shannon. These are all people who have been in my life for 25, 15, 10 years. Actually, Sarah, she's been in my life, actually, I think it's been over 10 years at this point. I was the maid of honor in her wedding. She and her husband are actually going to be moving in for a little bit. Just long story short, they bought a house and then the sewage was just bad, like bad. So they're gonna stay with me for a little bit, and I'm so excited because it's like, oh my God, bless his heart. John was like, "Are you sure this is okay? I just want to make sure, that we're not intruding." And I was like, "John, you're telling me that I get an indefinite slumber party with one of my best friends?" And like John and I really love John for Sarah. I couldn't ask for a better husband for her. Like he's a perfect match. And I love that he and I have our own friendship also. He definitely is like an older brother to me. I really value that. And I was like, so you're telling me you get to come do house stuff while me and Sarah watch movies and have slumber parties, and I get live-in cat sitters? Like, what do you mean? Of course I'm happy about that. So that's gonna be so much fun. So you'll definitely see them in a lot of content this summer, especially as Sarah and I find projects for John to do around my house. I've been saying forever that I'm gonna like redo my studio, and I just haven't had the time. But when John moves in. But anyways, I feel like I'm going off on tangents talking about people. We're gonna take a quick break and hear from our sponsor. As you guys can see, or I guess hear, for those that can't see me, I'm traveling and I'm not home. But do you want to know the very first thing that I put in my suitcase? Every single piece of Skims that I own. Because as we know, I'm all about comfort. I need to be comfortable all the time. Like, I'm always gonna be a comfort over everything person. And there's nothing that brings me that pure, like, comfortable hug joy feeling than my Skims Fits Everybody collection. And I say this all the time, the easiest kind of ad for me to make is one where I genuinely love the product, one that I genuinely use it, and everything that I'm saying to you guys isn't even a script they've given me. I'm just talking about my experience and explaining to you why I genuinely love this for me. Hands down, my favorite thing to wear. I'm in California. Do you know how hot it is here already? Do you think I could last being in California for a week in this Southern California heat without having the most comfortable clothing items that I own? No. Even my mom, I told her she was looking for shapewear and I was like, stop looking at these stop. looking at these other places. Please just trust me, and please just invest in Skims. Just try it. Just try it. That's what I'm telling you guys. Like, if you don't like it, you can blame me, but I don't think you'll not like it. I think you're going to love it. It's just so comfy and soft and breathable. And even though it comes in the package and it looks so tiny and you're like, how is this gonna fit on my body? It does. I don't know what magic they put in the fabric, but it's there. So shop Skims Fits Everybody collection at skims.com and in Skims stores. Available in sizes from XX small to 4X. And after you place your order, be sure to let them know that I sent you. Select podcast in the survey, and be sure to select my show in the Dropbox that follows. I love working with them and I want to keep doing it. It's just so comfy. It feels like I'm wearing a hug, so get your hug. Now, back to the episode. But something that, you know, I grew up here and I'm trying to kind of like set the foundations for my life, you know what I mean? All the background information and context. And the people, again, the people that have been in my life have been a part of it for so long that for me it's natural context. But everyone always asks, you know, for those that don't know, I started out as a high school social studies teacher, and one of the most common questions that I always get is, what made me want to be a teacher? And I'll be honest, I remember the exact moment. And it wasn't even a big thing. It wasn't anything massive or a crazy teachable moment. I just remember sitting in my 5th grade classroom. And in 5th grade, the school that I was at was having kids. I don't know if every elementary school does this. I have no idea. But you know, in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, you have the one teacher. And then in 5th grade, we ended up having 2 teachers, and we would have our main teacher. And then our main teacher would, you know, I had Mr. Bulch, and we're still friends on social media. And he's a principal now, and he was so cool. He's the first one to ever get me excited about history, to be honest. So I had Mr. Bulch for my main teacher, and he also focused on, I think it was language arts and social studies. And then Miss Emery next door, who we're also social media friends, like we're friends on Facebook and things like that, and she's also been able to watch me grow up. But she did science and math. And so it was their way of practicing, or letting us practice switch classes for when we go to middle school, where we have a different teacher for every class, which I thought was really cool and smart and a good like natural progression thing to do. I don't know if every elementary school does that, but I thought that was really neat and valuable. And I loved Mr. Balch and Miss Emery so much, so much. I remember more of my 5th grade years than I remember of any other year in elementary school and most of my middle school years, to be completely honest, because they were just wonderful. And I just remember sitting in Miss Emery's math class. And I don't even like math, guys. I don't even like math. I hate math. I hate it so much. And I just remember watching her teach and thinking, yeah, I want to do that. And it wasn't even the math part, because I don't math. And I remember like that same day, the exact same day, right before I got to Miss Emery's class, Mr. Bulch was teaching us about guerrilla warfare, right, in the American Revolution. And I vividly remember him talking to us about how, you know, fighting styles in Europe had been so different before guerrilla warfare that most likely there was probably some British general fighting Native Americans who literally started pointing and screaming, "You guys can't do that!" And I'm trying not to yell too loud because my cat Milo here is very sensitive to sounds and I don't want to scare him. But it was so funny and it was so silly. And I just remember I, as a 5th grader, was so immersed in this lesson of learning about the different war tactics between Native Americans and British generals. And then right after going into Miss Emery's class and seeing her make math make sense to me, I remember vividly thinking, oh yeah, this is it. This is totally what I want to do. And I kind of had this idea, okay, I want to teach, but I don't necessarily know what I want to teach. And when I got to high school, I had a teacher who changed my life. And this was a teacher, his name was Schaefer, Mark Schaefer. And this is gonna sound so morbid, but it's something that like that's his humor. Like, he would say this. And anyone that was, some of my old classmates watched my stuff, and anyone who was in those classes or knew Schaefer would be like, oh yeah. Like, I can hear Schaefer in my head saying, well, am I dead yet? Like, yeah, I don't know if he's alive or not. And like, I want to turn it into a joke so bad, but I know people that don't know him are going to be like, oh my God, that's so insensitive and so morbid. But like, that's him. That's Schaefer. He was the most unhinged teacher I've ever seen in my life. Like, for example, he told us, it was AP US history, and he told us he had a rare artifact from the Peggy Eaton affairs. And for those that don't know, there was a politician that had a special lady friend who had nighttime careers doing special lady friend things, and the other politicians' wives didn't like it. Didn't like it at all. It was like a whole scandal, right? And so he's like, I got a special artifact, blah, blah. And he literally like takes out this Barbie doll that's like wearing scandalous clothes and just passes around this boxed up Barbie doll. And I was like, what is this? I don't understand. And he would just make such unhinged jokes and comparisons to so many, like he was a divorced man who, like, we were talking about the greenbacks during the Civil War, and he would compare it to like his ex-wife's back kind of thing. Like, horrible jokes, horrible, awful things that were so unhinged. I still remember them to this day. I remember him trying to act out the idea of sea dogs, and like trying to look like a dog swimming in the classroom. Like, so many things that were crazy. And I was like, this is so not okay. But I remembered so much content. And I've never retained information the way that I retained information in his class. And he made learning interesting, and you never knew what to expect. And it was like enjoyable and fascinating in the most horrifying ways. But in the like, and he was also an old Jewish man, and so he would refer to me as his Jewish daughter in class. And it was just, that's when I decided social studies. I feel like I'm rambling a lot. That's when I decided social studies. And anyone that, I know there's a lot of people in my life that I went to high school with that I'm still in contact with. And even one of my best friends, Lauren, listens to every episode, and I can see her nodding along because she had a different teacher who was best friends with Schaefer. And she heard so many things about this man. So many things. And so I can just see her kind of nodding as she's listening. And she'll probably text me and say, you right? And then I'll expect that text in a week or so. Not really. You don't have to text me, Lauren. It's okay. But yeah, that's when I decided social studies. And so I went to this Meredith College. It's actually so interesting. So anyone that ever sees this ring that I have, everyone always asks about this ring. And so this is my Meredith Onyx. Meredith College is a very small all-girls school in Raleigh. It's basically the sister school of NC State. And what a lot of people don't know, and I hear that they don't do this as much, like they did not like people doing this apparently after I left. I don't know. But when I was there, there was an understanding that the 5 schools in downtown Raleigh, you know, NC State, Meredith, Shaw, Peace, St. Aug, and I feel like I'm missing one. I feel like I just counted incorrectly, but whatever. They had like these reciprocity systems that you could take classes at each other's campuses. And when you did that, you would obtain a student ID and you would become eligible for various things. So that's how, even though I went to Meredith College, Meredith didn't have a cheerleading team, and that I did cheerleading for 15 years. And so I was able to do cheerleading at NC State instead through that program because I got a student ID. I just had to take a class on their campus every semester. I didn't think about it for, like, I'm a very, like, I love instructions, I love rules, I like directions. And they're like, hey, you have to go and take a class. I didn't realize until my last year that if you didn't get like you could first take them pass fail and it still counted. And if you didn't pass it, it just wouldn't transfer to your record because it was from a different institution. And I didn't know that. So I'm sitting there taking like full loads of classes and then additional classes at state to make sure I can cheer. I didn't know that I didn't have to do that. I could have saved myself a lot of time. But that's besides the point. I went to Meredith. The reason that I picked Meredith was because they just had such a good education program. It was a smaller school, but they were known for their I started talking about the ring and I got distracted. I'm so sorry. So this is the onyx. It is an oval. We could either do black and gold or black and silver. I chose gold because I just thought that the gold looked more iconic, personally, for this style. I do love silver jewelry. I have a, not this one, I have a silver necklace that's a heart. It's a Tiffany heart. It's from my grandparents. So they're on my dad's side, there's 6 cousins, 3 boys, 3 girls. We are the only household that did girl first and then boy instead of vice versa. That's my dad and his middle child syndrome, bless. And my grandparents for a while really wanted something sentimental. You know, my grandfather is a Holocaust survivor. The idea of being remembered, cherished, valued, very, very, very big on that side of the family. And they wanted something that they could feel like they were always remembered by. And they feel like coming to America, like they're very, I don't want to say brand conscious. I don't know how to explain this. But like to them, Tiffany's a big deal, right? And so they were like, well, if we got our granddaughters a necklace with our names engraved, like, would they wear it? And I think I was the only cousin that said yes. I've definitely always been like the very girly one. And the fact that like I wear it so much, it means so much to them. And they see it in so many videos. So if you ever see that, I felt like gold looked a little better with this color today. But if you ever see that silver necklace that I'm always wearing, that is from my grandparents on my father's side. I'm rambling again. I really should have taken Adderall before this, probably. But I like silver jewelry, but I felt like the gold for the onyx, just like, I feel like it fit better. And it has a crest on it. I don't know if you can really see it in this lighting. I can like attach a photo for those that are actually watching visually. And that is our school crest. It's called the Lux. And it's so funny because the video game that I play a lot does have a champion called Lux. And in that role, she's like the only one that I'll go mid lane. And it's just ironic. And I just think that's funny. And no one else knows what that means or gets it. But to me, it's a funny haha. So I'll enjoy that. But anyways, Meredith had a wonderful education program. I mean, they still do. The professors were so interesting. I think my favorite, I had one professor at Meredith that really, really opened my eyes to like child psychology and child development. Her name was Professor Schrock. And there's so many things that she said that I literally put in my back pocket for like if I ever have kids or if I'm ever in charge of children, like these are things that I'm going to remember and these are things that I'm going to remember and value. Like for example, she told us this story about how young ears listen and retain a lot more than we think that they do. And teaching empathy at a young age can be game-changing for these kids. And she told us a story about how, you know, she obviously always would like preach these things to her children. And one year, you know, her son did a lot of baseball. And I'm gonna be honest, she told me this a long time ago when I was sitting in her class. I'm like 29, she told me this when I was like, what, 20? But I believe it was, you know, after a baseball game, the boys went to, I think it was Golden Corral, and the boys were a little rowdy, and, you know, they were doing spitballs and causing a little bit of a ruckus, and so she went over and she was like, boys, like, we are in a restaurant. You can't be acting like this. And I don't remember if it was her son or daughter that spoke up, but one of them did and said, Mom, we are in a little private area by ourselves, and we already know that, like, we agreed we were going to clean up after all the spitballs, and, like, we're keeping track of where they're going so that none of the wait staff has to clean that up. Like, is that not okay? Like, I thought that we were being considerate, like, having fun, but still being considerate and not making anyone else's day more difficult. And she just kind of was floored that these young boys thought of that, or that her child thought of that. And that, you know, the fact that they thought about what they could be doing that would be bothering other people and decided, okay, here's how we're going to fix this issue so that we can enjoy ourselves but not impede on anyone else. that she was just like, all right, carry on. Like, you know what? I appreciate it. And he told her, like, hey, if we see anyone else come into this section, like, we'll stop. But for now, it's only us. So, like, is it okay if, we have fun? And yeah, I guess so. And I never forgot that story. I just thought it was so amazing and such a great reminder that little minds are taking in the world, and what we show them and what we teach them does become their reality. And I loved every one of her classes. Every one of her classes, I thought they were so fascinating. And another really great thing about Meredith, the class sizes were so small. So like the relationships that we were able to create with our professors were just wonderful. And like me personally, I had a few professors that I had those kinds of relationships with. Like my political science professor, loved that woman. She was so cool. I loved her classes. They were so interesting, just talking about court cases all the time. But I was going to school, I was doing cheerleading, I was working at the restaurant, because as for a lot of you that know, there's this sports bra that I worked at starting in high school throughout college. Like, I was busy, I was tired. Like, should I have gone to more office hours? Probably, but I didn't have time, man. I mean, especially student teaching. Okay, this is one of the first times I like really broke rules. I was not supposed to do this. I was not supposed to do anything during student teaching year. They told us specifically they didn't even want us to work, which I honestly thought was so unrealistic, because when you have college kids that are like supporting themselves, some are, I was very fortunate that my father was able to pay my college tuition, but many in general don't have that luxury. What do you mean you can't work during student teaching? That, I feel like that's such an unrealistic expectation. So I was only supposed to student teach, and I was supposed to quit cheerleading, and I was supposed to quit working at the restaurant, and I didn't quit any of them. And let me tell you, my student teaching year, I thought that was going to kill me. I'm going to be honest. Oh, wow, that was right. I don't know how I finished that. I'm going to be honest. I woke up at 5 in the morning. And for those that don't know, student teaching is basically like you are the teacher in a public school, and you're doing the lessons, and you're doing the grading, and you're doing the planning, and you're doing everything, but you don't get paid for it. So basically there's a CT, or a cooperating teacher, and you go and you teach her class, and they're supposed to watch you and give you feedback. And my CT was a great person. I think she was a lovely lady, but she didn't really watch me or give me feedback. Like, I was so stressed. I didn't even think I was going to finish student teaching, because she would just leave when I was teaching. And she was a great person. She was very kind. I liked her as a person. But whenever it was my turn to teach, she would leave and go hang out with other teachers. There was one time where, like, I remember she like went to the gym, which is fine. I don't care. But that totally happened. And I would say, hey, I need you to evaluate me. And she would say, yep, doing great. And I'm like, that's crazy. You never watched me. Okay, cool. And I remember she told me that she hadn't had a student teacher finish the semester in how many years. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. I wonder why that is. And then my professors would come to observe me, and they would say, we feel like you're not getting XYZ, or you're not doing XYZ. And I'm like, can you elaborate more? And they're like, well, what has your CT been telling you? And I'm like, nothing. Literally nothing. And then my CT started sitting back in the classrooms, but she made this fort so that the other kids couldn't see her. And I don't know why. Just sit at your desk. Like, you don't have to be Mission Impossible. You don't have to be Tom Cruise. Like, they can see that you're there. Like, I don't know why we're doing this, but whatever. Because you're still not watching me. You're just kind of listening. But okay, whatever. And I'll be honest, my part of me thinks that this was like a psychological mind game for the professors. I'm going to be so honest. Because they would tell me things like, you're just not getting it. We don't know if you'll finish. And I didn't change anything. And like the next week they were like, oh my God, this is what we were talking about. This is perfect. This is what you need to do every time. And I was like, I've been doing exactly what I've been doing. And knowing them, I feel like it was a mind game to like make you amp up the effort, if that makes sense. Because I didn't change anything that I was doing. And it's not like there was anyone that I could really ask. Because when I say our class sizes were small, I mean in our high school social studies pod, there was 3 of us. Just 3. And our education cohort in general was also incredibly small. Maybe 30 of us, maybe. Probably not even that much. And I think now, like we were class of 2018, I think now there might be 1 or 2 from our class that's still in education. I just need to throw that out there. And all of us were always so passionate, so passionate about like what we were doing, right? I loved teaching. I loved everything about, let's not get ahead of ourselves. There are many things I didn't love about teaching, but I genuinely believed that I was going to be a teacher for 30 years. And I'm going to be honest, there was a year in college where I considered, do I want to go pre-law? Do I want to look more into psychology? And it ended up being the person I was with at the time. My ex-husband. I was trying not to like, I don't know. It's fine. I kind of remembered that you all know that I was with him for 10 years. So anyone in that time frame wouldn't make sense to insinuate it was anyone else. But just kind of, I don't want to say convinced me, because I'm not trying to say it was a negative at all. I was just juggling these options, and he was like, hey, well, we say we want a family, and if you're a teacher, then when we have kids, like that is going to be a whole lot easier for you to manage working and being a mom, because originally we did go into our relationship wanting children and wanting a family. And so even though I thought about other avenues for a bit, I did go back to education, and I loved it. I really thought, again, I was going to be in it for 30 years. And today, again, I think there's only 1, maybe 2 from our class that are still in it. But that's crazy, and that just shows, like, even the woman in charge of the high school social studies section even told us that they didn't know if there was even going to be a high school social studies section the next year or the year after, because there was no one signing up for it. Like, the amount of people that were going into education, which again is one of the degrees that Meredith is known for, was just so small. Like, they didn't think there would be anybody who would be signing up for that, which is crazy. And I think that just kind of goes to show, again, like the crisis of public education, when some of the top schools in the state known for these programs aren't getting people to sign up for them. It's crazy. And everyone always tells the new teachers and the people graduating in education, oh, it's rough, but you got this and you'll change the world and blah, 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 blah. And I feel like every new teacher kind of goes into their first school with that mentality. I know that I did. And the first school that I got a job at was not the best fit for me. And that's another thing that I think is really important that a lot of people don't know, is that when you're teaching, you got to find the school that fits you. Like, every school has a different vibe and atmosphere, and my first one was not for me. The first school that I taught at was a very competitive place. Like, a lot of people referred to this school as like the public private. Like, it was a public school, and it definitely was one of the, if not the top schools score-wise. A lot of the kids that I was teaching were applying to solely Ivy Leagues, like a very good school. And the kids had such a competitive nature about them that I think that very oftentimes spilled over into the adults, like the teachers, and it became I think it was kind of toxic, personally. Like, who has the best 10th grade English class? Well, it doesn't really matter who is the most difficult teacher, and who, like, when they graduate, it's going to say they got an A in 10th grade English. It's not going to say that they got an A in Miss Gertrude's class. Like, the colleges don't care. Like, I never understood that. But it was a lot. And I remember I was given world history, which I came to love. I actually loved everything that I taught my first year teaching. It was just a little crazy because, so what a lot of people don't know is that
for whatever reason, people think that teachers create all the standards for all these classes, and that's just not the case when it comes to required classes, like your core classes, things that are required to graduate. So it's going to be like world history and civics and American history and all the specific maths that you need. The state is the one that creates the standards. They create the tests, like the final state exams for everybody. It's not the teachers. And world history is one of those state required courses. And so, that was state made, and it was very Eurocentric. I got to tweak a little bit to add more, like in the Middle Ages. I got to do more with Asian Middle Ages and African Middle Ages, and I really valued that. And the first school that I taught at was an incredibly diverse place. And so one of the reasons that I added extra things in the Middle Ages was because I had so many students from different parts of the world. And like, especially, I'll never forget, adding in African Middle Ages and going into the creation of the Swahili language. I had a student front row who was beaming because his first language was Swahili, and he just felt so seen in that moment. And oh my God, I'm gonna start crying again. Just seeing his face, I was like, yeah, I mean, this is the kind of job for me, for sure, absolutely. And the other class that I taught, so I taught mostly world history. And I also taught, they hired me the weekend before school started, right? And they said, hey, you're going to teach world history, which is, of course, state standards, and world religions. And I said, oh, what's that? And they said, well, it's an elective. So even though there are state standards, there's no state exam, and like pretty much the old teacher that I was replacing used it as study hall. Like that was it. And that's why a lot of kids signed up for it, because they totally thought they were signing up for study hall. They were not expecting to see little old me on that Monday, but they did. And I said, hey, so who else teaches this for me to ask what we're supposed to be doing? And they said, nobody, just you. And I said, okay, who else in this county teaches this? And they said, there's one other guy at this other school down the road, but he's a little older, so he doesn't really respond to emails. Good luck. And I said, well, is there anywhere that I can find information for this? I don't know what I'm doing with this one. And so our county had this thing called CMAP. And basically it was an outline of what you need to do for each course, whether it be state standards or electives, like things like that. And for this course, for whatever reason, it wasn't working. Like, you go to the world religions page and you click unit 1 and it went to geometry. Like, I kid you not, it went to geometry. I remember thinking, what? What? I don't like math. And then you click on unit 2 and it went to the American Revolution. And I was like, this is not right. I don't know what I'm doing in my administration. Remember, this is like about to be my first day of work as a newbie teacher. I didn't really have a lot of experience student teaching because I was kind of on my own. And my administration was like, good luck. You got this. So I literally showed up to my first day of school with all of these seniors already upset that they have an actual class and not just study hall. And I said, so what do you guys want to learn about? And at first it was like really awkward and quiet. And I was like, no, actually, like what I want you to do, I'm going to give everyone a whiteboard marker, and I want you to go to the board and I want you to write down a culture that you've always been interested in, or that you've always wanted to learn about, or something, anything. And so I had all 40, I either had like top 30, like upper 30s or lower 40s. We had major class sizes in that school. I remember one world history class, I had 43 kids. I didn't even have enough desks in the class for all the kids that I had there. And I had all these kids go to the whiteboard and write down something that they wanted to learn about. And at the end of the day, I think it was either my first class or my last class. It was my first class, and the next period I had planning period. Right. I remember. Oh, it feels like so long ago. And I literally just grouped like things, right? And I looked at everything that they had written on the board, and I just tried to make similar groups of things that looked related And I came up with my own course because I didn't know what else to do, to be honest. So I think Unit 1 was ancient mythologies, and we looked at Greek and Roman and Norse and Egyptian. And then the next unit was, I think, tribal religions. In my brain, I'm seeing tribal religions as number 3, but then I don't remember what 2 was. I can't remember. It was so long at this point, but I know there was a unit on mythologies, one on tribal religions, one on Asian culture. So like more, whenever people think of like Asian religion, they think of like Buddhism or Hinduism, but like, no, I'm more niche, like Zoroastrianism or Jainism, things like that. And then we had a unit on the big 5, like the main 5. And I know there was one other, I can't remember what the other unit was for the life of me. I know as soon as I finish recording, I'll remember, but that's not important at this moment in time. And I feel like teaching that course really opened up my eyes to so much of the world. Like I learned so much about the world and so much about different cultures and so much about different people. Like I value what I learned and how I grew as a person so much from that experience. It was amazing. And during that first year of teaching is when, TikTok first started becoming really big. And I told myself, I will never download that app. Never. I will never do it. Because remember, I was like, 22, teaching. My oldest students were 17, 18 years old. Like it was very important for me to keep very strict professional boundaries, and not getting into like all the social media things that they were into was just one way for me to kind of separate myself, if that makes any sense. And the reason that I ended up leaving my first school, and a lot of people don't know how this works, but teachers in a school system don't work for the school directly, they work for the county is kind of how it works. And so the number of teachers that a school is able to house is based on how many students are enrolled. So that's why if you remember, at the beginning of semesters, they do this in elementary schools and things like that too. People just don't remember as well. If you're a parent, you'll totally get it. The first 10 days when everyone's super about attendance and getting to school and all the things. Yes. So the reason that's so important is because those first 10 days, just counting, is a kid here once? Okay, they count as enrolled. They're here. That determines how many teachers a school is able to keep in the building. So if they'll go for the full 10 days and they see that enrollment is down, it's very possible that they will have to lose some teachers at that school. And if they take enrollment's up, they will have to hire some teachers. And so because they were building a brand new high school right by my first school, when it opened over the summer, they split our student body population and another school's student body population. It was really kind of split between 3 schools, but we lost a lot of kids. And every department had to lose 2 or 3 teachers, and I, being one of the newest, was one of the ones. And so what this is called is displacement. The teachers are displaced. So they are still employed by the county. They were not fired. They were not let go. They are guaranteed a job. You can't just lose your teaching job or not be a teacher because of displacement. They owe you a job. When school starts, it might not be, well, it has to be within, okay, from what I remember them telling me, you can teach outside of your license for 1 year. So like I was high school social studies. That is what my license is in, 9, 12 social studies. Well, if they if they can't find a high school social studies position, they can put me in middle school English or high school science or something along those lines, because I'm guaranteed a job. They have to put me somewhere, and it could for a year be not in my specialty, not where I'm licensed, but I'm at least guaranteed a job, kind of thing, is what they were saying. Like, hey, you're displaced, don't worry, you're still employed, don't stress out. Now, when you're displaced, you can either wait for wherever the county places you, or you can go out and you can interview and like be hired or claimed by another school. And so that is what I did. I don't know what I would have gotten if I waited, but I'm an impatient person and I don't like to feel not in control of my future. So I was not just going to leave it up to the county. I was like, I'll find me something. And so I interviewed and I got placed at my second school, and I loved it. I loved the vibe. I loved the community feel. I really loved this place. And it was at this school that I would start my social media journey. What ended up happening was, I started school and I taught the year as one does. And in March of my first year at this school, we had that crazy thing called COVID. Yeah, and school just stopped. Everyone just went home and it was just done for the year. And the next year, we all started online, right? All classes were completely, I can't remember, I think all classes were completely remote at this point. I'm pretty positive. There were no students in the building. And so the students that I had, it was the first year that I only had freshmen, or the first semester that I only had freshmen, which again, I preferred because I was still very young. I was 23 at this point, 23, 24, and they were all 14. So it felt like a much better age gap. I felt a lot more comfortable. They weren't just going to mistake me as a friend, you know what I mean? And the problem was the kids were just so sad and depressed, and I couldn't get them to talk to me during class. I couldn't get them to turn on their cameras. Even the few that I got to like speak, most just kind of typed in the chat. And it was rough. And it was kind of like my own identity crisis because I never had issues bonding with my students before like that. And I was desperate to find a way to reach them. And I tried so many things, right? I tried bonding with them over sports. I don't know anything about sports, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I know how sports work, okay? I did 15 years of cheerleading. I know how football works. I know how basketball works. My brother was a wrestler. I know how sports work, okay? I don't watch sports. I don't know any of the players. I don't know stat thing. I don't know, man. It was hard. And I tried, another thing I tried was animes was on a resurgence because, everyone was at home and watching Netflix and things like that. I don't know anything about animes. I know Avatar, The Last Airbender, and I know Arcane, but people tell me those don't count. I feel like they count, but most people tell me they don't, so that was a bust. And the third thing that I tried, if I could get any kids to talk during the day, right, it was usually about the clock app. That darn clock app. And so I just asked them one day, I said, hey, what if I made an account? You guys can pick the username and everything, and you find appropriate trends for me to participate in. What about that? That could be like our own little inside joke, right? You can troll me. I don't care. You can make fun of me. And remember, like being in the classroom and with the kids, that's where I felt like I could be silly and not worry about, like I didn't care about embarrassing myself. That wasn't anything that I was worried about. I'm not going to say it's the start of where I really got to be myself because I feel like that was the case for my teaching career in general, right? I've always been a loud, extroverted, happy person, right? But there has been like the silliness level that has always been more reserved, if that makes sense. And the reason being, growing up in the South, I think modernly it's like way better than it was, but there's like always misogyny in the South. And growing up as a Jewish girl in the South, I think there's an entire extra layer of don't draw too much attention to yourself. Because, there are still places to this day that my dad out in public is afraid to speak of in worry that someone might place his accent. And like that makes him feel unsafe. And like, again, it's just like a kind of another layer of don't draw too much attention to yourself. And so I remember, I'm not going to say her last name, obviously. I do remember it from all these years ago, but I remember a girl named Sarah in my 4th period class. She came up with our Rogers World. Rogers World was already taken, and she came up with our Rogers World, Rebecca Rogers, and she said, I'll never forget, Ms. Rogers, it's really your world. We all just live in it. And my response to her was, girl, you get me. And that was my handle. That's what they made. That's what it has always been. And I think on like some platforms, it's just Rebecca Rogers, but I think on others, just if it was available or not, I think on like TikTok, an old manager of mine made me change it, and I'm probably just going to change it back. But like Instagram, for still our Rogers World, like that's what my kid's made for me, and that's how it started. It was just supposed to be an inside joke for us. And I assumed, yeah, maybe some old students would see it, or kids from my previous school, or even I had some kids from my student teaching year that were like, oh my god, it's you, which I had a different name when I was student teaching. I wasn't married yet. Get into that later, but it was just fun. And then I realized that we actually had numerous teachers in the county who were big, well-known TikTok teachers, and one was at my school. Her name was Brenda, and I was like, oh my god, I want to be her friend. And we just instant best friends, and we're still very close. I just saw her like a couple weeks ago. Love that woman, and we would just do silly TikTok videos. She's from Mexico. She was a Spanish teacher, and so a lot of her content is rooted in Spanish culture. Now she has a Mexican candy store and she is a wonderful cook and it makes everything herself, and it's all amazing, and I love her, and I'll link it. Like, oh my god, she's so talented. Love that woman. But so she would like teach me Spanish dances, and I totally thought I could pull them off, and I could not. It's fine. It was all just for fun. And then one day one of my kids said something wild, and she said, Ms. Rogers, is the languages of Mexico and India similar to each other? And I was like, no. Why would you ask me that? And she said, well, I just assumed, because they're just so geographically close together. And I just stared at her. And I finally spoke, and I said, can you show me what map you're looking at, please? And the map she had, it was folded. The map was folded. That was the issue. The map was folded. But my kids were like, oh, that was so funny. You have to make a skit into that, blah, 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 blah. Miss Rogers, you can't just tell the other classes that happened because you're not funny and you're going to ruin it. And I said, oh, thank you so much for that ego boost. And so they coached me through, you have to make a skit, and they picked my filters and they picked everything. And that was the first skit I ever posted, and people loved it. It was the first video I ever made that went viral. And then, of course, other kids wanted to say dumb things on purpose or do silly things or whatever because they wanted a skit I made about them. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm not doing skits. And I've never posted a skit about a current student that I taught or was teaching without their full permission. And then I just kind of made like a rule, okay, I don't even want to, even with their permission, because now y'all are just trying to do silly things on purpose and it's getting in the way of class. Like we're not, no more of that. Learned that lesson very quickly. And then as I kept going, I obviously was getting silly stories from my colleagues, and other teachers were sending them to me. But then a lot of these stories these messages that I was getting had connotations of, oh my gosh, you'll never believe what this parent's trying to bully me into, or you'll never believe what administration is trying to pull, or you'll never believe what we're getting blamed for at my school. And that's when I realized that I could use these silly stories, because everyone loves to laugh. Everyone loves to ha-ha at the end of their day. And I realized that I could use people's need for joy and laughter, especially during COVID, and sneakily get in some advocacy about, hey, this is how we're talking to teachers, or these are some things that people need to know about education, or here are things that the general public just is unaware of and probably should know to have like a greater appreciation of the education system and their kids' teachers and things like that. And that's what really started me taking the platform seriously. And I eventually would leave the classroom. I've been out for years at this point. And that's something else that I'll mention in a little bit. And I have an entire other episode on why I quit teaching if you missed it, and I'll try to link that as well, because that's way too long of a nitty-gritty story. The short notes, Cliff Notes version is, I had a very horrible principal who was out to get many people at our school, me included, and it wasn't worth it when I felt like I was putting my heart and soul into everything that I was doing, and nothing was good enough. I mean, he was a bully. He was just a huge bully. And eventually I was pushed to a point where I mentally and even physically could not take it anymore. I could not even tell you like how physically ill I felt from everything that I experienced leading up to me quitting teaching. I would come home in tears. I remember I would just sleep through the weekends because my body in my mental was just so fatigued. And I never thought that I would go content full time. I genuinely thought I would get into ed tech, because that was something that a lot of teachers on social media were kind of getting into. And then after I put in my 30 days notice, I finally became eligible for monetization on social media. I wasn't even eligible for it before this point. It was only after I put in my notice to leave. It was about a year after I started social media. And that's when I got my first paycheck from YouTube, and I said, oh, I can live off this for sure. For sure. I'm gonna do that. And so I did, and it was one of the most difficult decisions I had ever had to make, and I still keep in contact with some of my kids. I actually just got, I just got a message from one of my old Model UN kids like a week ago. Oh, I'm gonna start crying. And he told me that I and my teacher bestie, Trav, I need to text him this, I don't think I even told him, that we made him want to change his college major, and he's graduating college this year in education. And oh, I'm getting emotional. Oh, I really loved my job. I really loved it. And a lot of people ask me if I'm going to ever go back to teaching or if I want to go back to teaching. And honestly, the system, especially since COVID, the system is so incredibly broken, so broken. Like, as touched as I am, that I became what made some of my old students want to go into teaching. Because I've gotten numerous of those messages, which makes me want to just sob my heart out. I'm honored. The system is so broken, like I worry about my old kids going into the profession. It's such a mess. There's so much misinformation. There's so many things that the general public does not understand about the education system. I mean, even take, recently, politics and opinions aside, I was so frustrated seeing people post online, yay, I'm so glad that the federal Department of Education is getting defunded because that means that the states will be able to finally control their own education. What do you mean? They already do. They already have been. That has been in our Constitution since the start of the country. They have been doing that. Where have you been? Like, there is so much misinformation, even just about how our education system works, what the Department of Education actually did, who pays teachers. People don't know these things. It is crazy how misinformed people are about our education system. And like, it makes sense why people get so bent out of shape about teachers. Like, they don't understand who makes the rules. They don't understand who does X, Y, Z. But it's the teachers who are losing. It's the teachers who are getting blamed. And so, as much as I loved teaching, and as much as I know that I had an impact on those kids' lives, it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, I'd go back to teaching eventually. Like, why would I do that to myself? I just can't, with the state that the system is in, there's no way that I ever go back. I can't do that to myself. I respect myself too much to do that. And I will always have, like, my heart, education will always be in my heart. Teachers will always be in my heart. That's why I always try to do more school skits than anything else. Like, usually I'll do, like, every other day, a school skit and then a not school skit, and a school skit and not school skit. Because again, like, teaching is where I started. Teaching has my heart. I love it, and I love and appreciate teachers so much. And my love and respect for education even shapes a lot of my teaching. Like, I'll never forget I was at a conference once, and these one guys were like, hey, you should totally make content about how to teach. And I said, no, because current educators do not appreciate when people not in the classroom tell them what to do in the classroom, because they don't know what it's like in the classroom. Like, people who aren't in the classroom, they don't understand. I don't know how to explain this for people who have never been in a classroom before, but the state of classrooms changes like every year, every semester. And since COVID, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. I do not know what it's like to be in a classroom with today's kids. No idea. Because every generation and every year, the kids are so different, right? They are. It is different every single year. I haven't been in the classroom for 5 years. Who am I to tell a teacher who's living in the trenches right now and experiencing it what they should or shouldn't be doing? I don't know what they're experiencing. And that's something that is like a huge issue in education. And like, I will never do that. I will just never do that. I think that's so disrespectful for people who have been like out of it for years and years and years to try and say, I know the best way that teachers should be doing XYZ. No, I hate that. I hate it so much. I'll never do that to them. But I'll still always have it in my heart. You know what I mean? And ever since I went full time, I started the podcast. Started 2, technically. Started 1, it got taken from me. The whole experience about it, I'm over it. To be completely honest, once the first project got taken from me, and it's always funny, I see people like online, oh, she sold it. Nope, got nothing. What I will say is part of me didn't even want to start another podcast after, because I was just so over it. I was so tired and exhausted, and I just wanted to be done with it. But then they tried to tell me I couldn't start another one. And I don't really like when people tell me what to do. So here we are. And it's always so funny. I'll be so completely honest and transparent with you guys. Started this one because I felt like I had to show that I could, and that the people who beat me down could not dictate my future any longer. And while I still love it, I've already in general never been a person that's like, oh, I want to have the highest views and I want to be the viral sensation. I'm not that kind of a person. I've never been that kind of a person. I want to be able to do enough to be able to pay my bills and live the life that I want to live. And if that means that I get to like consider it a business expense to travel and record some episodes with either my friends or people who will become my friends, shoot. Okay. That sounds like a great time. That sounds like a great life. Like, I'm never going to be someone that's like, oh, I have to get this many views and I have to get this many followers and I have to be able to make this much. If I can pay my bills and do the things that I want to do, I'm so happy. It's always so funny to me because like there's a thing in the content world where I'm mostly on YouTube, because YouTube is where you have like the long and short form content, and Facebook, yeah, too, but it's not the same. But creators who get into short form content first have a lot of trouble with long form content, and vice versa. Content creators that start with like long form content tend to have trouble with short form content. And I'm a short form content creator. Like, do I have long videos? Yeah, but they don't perform anywhere near my shorts are, and I don't really care. And it's always really funny whenever I see people commenting like thinking they're doing something by pointing it out. And I'm like, first of all, not only do you just not know how this works, like that's normal for anyone that's like a short form creator, but you picked the wrong one, man. I really don't care. Like, I just want to pay my bills and let my cats live a good life. That's all I care about. Like, I bought a house, which I'm so thankful and so fortunate to have been able to do. But like, my point is like, I was able to buy a house. I was able to get a vehicle. If I can just pay my bills, like, I'm good. That's all I need. Like, I'm very fortunate to have been able to do the things that I've been able to do. And I think the reason that I'm sharing this with you is I think that so many people see content creators, and I say content creators because like in our industry, there's a difference in mentality between people who will like refer to themselves as influencers versus content creators. And I definitely refer to myself as a content creator. I'm sorry, Milo. I slid my hands on the chair and it freaked him out. The word influencer just, it gives me chills. I don't love it. It makes me think of like, oh my gosh, I'm an influencer. Don't you know who I am? Like, I'm not that person. I'm never gonna be that person. I hate that. That's not a vibe I like to hang around, and that is the vibe that the word influencer gives to me and a lot of my friends. So we don't use that word. But I just think, I just kind of wanted to give, I don't know, this is supposed to be me opening my heart up to you guys, right? And I get so many people asking me, and when I asked you guys, like, what do you want to know? So many people, what are your goals? What are your ambitions? I just want to live my life. Like of course there are some books ideas. Like I have a kid's book in my head. I have an adult book in my head, like more like series for both. That I think eventually down the line I would love to look into. Right now I just kind of want to get more settled in life, if that makes a little bit more sense, just because of all the big changes going on in my life, one that we'll get to in a second. Not too much detail, but you know what I mean. But when it comes to my goals, right now I'm just kind of, I've never looked at content creation with the idea of I want this many followers or this many views. Like, content creation is one of those industries where you're going to have a period of time where you're going viral every other week, and then you're going to have a dormant time where you're just not. And like, that's just how the algorithms work. And I always thought it was very important to not let my self-worth be impacted by that, especially in the last year. Like this last year, I've kind of taken a break from a lot of content things, just for mental health reasons and just for mental health reasons, as we all know. And so I never really know how to respond when people are like, what are your goals? What do you want to do? What is the future? I just want to keep making people feel seen. I want to keep making people laugh while secretly incorporating a little bit of advocacy. Like, and what I mean by advocacy, like when I was a social studies teacher, I would always teach people, I would teach my kids, my students, the first step to accepting each other is understanding each other. And so that's really my goal with the skits. And even with like, am I the bad apple? It's all about different perspectives and like learning how to communicate with people who believe differently than you. Like, I absolutely know that there are people who hate half the things that I say in Bad Apple, but we just have different boundaries, or we internalize different details differently. And that's what the world is. Like, no one is going to have the exact same opinion on you for everything that comes up in your life. And learning how to communicate with people that you disagree with, I think, is a very healthy skill. Now, like, let's be clear, there's a huge difference between disagreeing about like what your boundaries with your in-laws should be versus like, important things that shouldn't necessarily be an opinion versus a fact, like vaccines don't cause autism. That's just a fact. And if I can change someone's perspective on life, and I'm not saying change their perspective as in like they have to agree with me, I more so mean, I've seen so many comments about like, hey, your skit really made me appreciate my teachers more. Or, hey, my wife is a nurse and I just have such an appreciation for what she does, and like you remind me of that. Like those kinds of things, you know what I mean? Or even, I had someone send me a DM that, they practice those communication skills in the comment section of Bad Apple. And like that's literally the whole reason that I like to do it. You know what I mean? And so when people ask me about my goals for social media, like those are what my goals are. I just kind of strive for that every day, but I don't necessarily have a goal of like, you know what I mean? And I think eventually as time goes on, like as I will find myself in different walks of life, like I'll incorporate different kinds of content. Like I think, before I didn't think that, oh, this is going to be like a bombshell for some of you guys, I swear. I forgot that I never mentioned this online. Before, like I was very adamant about like, I don't want children. And I think what I've kind of come to realize is I just didn't want children in the environment that I was in. And I don't know what the future holds for me. Like I'm not settling for, like, I'm not hell bent on like one way or the other, if that makes sense. It's a possibility. Yeah. I don't know. So like, yeah, if that does become my reality, like for sure, I would want to look into like different kinds of content. I would never like put a child on the camera like that. I think that's unsafe. But like looking more into, documenting the real and raw realities of what it would look like being a parent. Things like I'm totally open to something like that. People have asked if I would bring back my We Can't Make This Stuff Up series, bring it back again. Totally not opposed to that. I've just been really busy and overwhelmed with life. Those kinds of things. I don't necessarily have like a map, if that makes sense. Like so much of my life at this point, I never would have guessed would be reality, whether it be, doing YouTube full time or, getting divorced, things like I never would have thought it. And so I've kind of lived by, why would I map out exactly what I want to happen and how I want it to happen when like I don't even know what's possible at this point? You know what I mean? I have no idea what's going to be possible for me in the next few years because I never thought any of this would be possible. I think the only thing that I am certain on, that I do get asked a lot, I always get asked like, when are you going to move to LA? Or are you going to move to California? Or are you going to move somewhere? No. Nope. If I can help it, like I'm not leaving North Carolina for a lot of reasons. And I want to make sure that I can word some of these carefully because I don't want it to be misconstrued, especially by like the people I do hold near and dear. So like, first of all, the easy answer, like all of my family, like my parents are here, my brother's here, my lifelong friends are here. Why would I want to move away from that? And like another reason like surrounding that is, I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, whether it be a content creator or non-content creator. A lot of my friends do really important work, right? Like my friend Sarah got her PhD trying to find ways to cure staph infection. Like, that's crazy. She's so smart and the world needs that. That's important stuff. Lauren does like works in clinical trials for vaccines and things to help like major diseases, right? I do silly things on the internet. And like, yes, I get so many people telling me that, content, not even just for me, but in general, their favorite content creators change their life and make them smile. And I love that. And I don't want to diminish that at all. So I hope I'm explaining this well when I say like, in the grand scheme of things, the kinds of important work that my friends do is very grounding for me, right? So like going to live in a place like LA where, it feels like some content creator things can be life or death and it's just not, right? Whether it's, I didn't get invited to this party or I can't get into this event. Like when that is all you're surrounded by, those types of things can feel like life or death, and they're just not. I don't want that to feel like my life or death, if that makes sense. And being around the not content world, I feel like is very grounding for me and is why I've been able to stay exactly who I always have been, if that makes sense. And then another aspect of it, and this I even more so want to word carefully because I don't want it to be misconstrued at all, because I have a lot of wonderful friends in LA that I love so much, so much. And I don't want this to be misconstrued in any way, shape, or form. Most people in places like LA are there for a reason. And like their number one priority is like, I have this goal, this is my end goal, right? And I have seen so many examples, even with me living here, where I have been used for what I could get people or what I could do for people. Especially and I think that's been like my whole life, but especially in this industry. And I've been burned so many times. And like my heart's tired of it. I could never full-time live in a place where I constantly felt worried about, what do these people want from me? Like, do they want to be my friend, or do they like what I can get for them? And I am so lucky to have found the group of friends that I have, that I trust with my whole heart and life. And I know, like, love me for my crazy self. And when I visit, I go see those people and I come home. And I will obviously, like, meet more people, but, you know, cautiously, always, as you should always do. I couldn't live in that all the time. You know what I mean? That is so important to me. And I think it's something that unfortunately is on your mind a lot as a content creator, of like, do they like me? Do they want to be my friend? Or do they just want the things that I could get them? Or do they just want to meet my cooler friends? Because, like, I'll be honest, like, I say this all the time. The friends that I have in the content world, so much cooler than me. Like, they just are. And even, like, here, when I meet people, and for those that don't know, like, the big life changes that I've experienced in the last year is, about a year ago, I started the journey towards getting a divorce. And in my state, the law is that there's no fault divorce, doesn't matter the situation, and you have to be separated for a year and a day. So, like, you can file a year and a day. You have to be separated for an entire year, but you can't actually file for divorce until a year and a day. And it's a long time. It's a whole long time. And I think the justification is supposed to be, you know, oh, but you never know if you can reconcile, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that's the state's decision personally, or business. It is what it is. I think that it's a bad rule personally. But moving on, because I'm not going to get into all the details about that, because, you know, it's just recently been a year and a day, so now I can just start filing. And so the process isn't over, even though it feels like it's been going on for a really, really long time. And so I don't want to talk about it until it's all done with, if that makes sense. Because how it all ends will determine how much is shared, if that makes any sense at all. If that's helpful, if that says anything to you, sure. But, you know, even as I've stepped into the dating world, and first let me tell you, it sucks. It's awful. Oh my gosh. Who raised some of these people, first of all? I have been keeping track of some of the interesting people I have interacted with, and let me tell you, that's the kind of content I can't wait to share. That's gonna be funny, because it's just unbelievable the way some people actually think is appropriate to act in public. But anyways, even, like, navigating the dating field, I'm very self-conscious about who reaches out and, you know, just thinks my job is cool, or, you know, thinks I can introduce them to cool people, or, you know, just, oh, well, she makes so much money on YouTube, I want to be a part of that. Like, these are, like, very real things that I have to be aware of. And it's so interesting how many people think this is a crazy rule that I have for myself, but it is one that I have for myself. If anyone, like, obviously I've been on apps, and anyone who immediately, like, mentions my job, or just, oh, I saw you on the internet, immediate, nope, because you just never know. You never know. And I don't have time to be strung along by a person that just, like, thinks my job is cool. I'm not interested in that. And here's the thing. I'm trying to think of how to explain this, because my friend Lauren and I were talking about this not that long ago, and I tried to explain it to her, because I told her that I don't want to interact with people that just immediately are like, oh, I know who you are. And she was like, well, Rebecca, you've been doing this so long, it's gonna be difficult to find people who just don't know who you are. Like, even they don't even have to watch your content. They might just, like, know that you're a person on the internet. And what I explained to her is that as much as I try to be very transparent about me and myself on the internet, it's impossible to share everything. And no matter what, there's still always going to be the image that people create in their head of me based on what they see on the internet. So even if with as hard as I try to just stay myself always, I've found that people will still like take what they do see, and it's also impossible to just always see everything I post all the time. People will create the image of me in their head that fits what they have seen of me. And that's fair and that's valid. But I don't want to feel like I'm competing with an image that they have of me already. And again, even though I try to make sure that the image that people have of me from the internet is as real as possible, even just from reading comments, I don't even know what words I'm looking for. Like I've seen people say like, this video isn't you. You would never post something like this. And I'm like, what do you mean? This is like the most like me thing I've posted in a long time. What do you mean? Or like when I explain my thought process for things on Am I the Bad Apple as thoroughly as I possibly can. And then I'll like try to respond to people in the comments and they're like, you sound so rude. And I'm like, I'm literally responding to this exactly like I would on video. But on video, because I have the high-pitched voice and the cadence, like it doesn't come off aggressively, but apparently over text it does. And like no matter what, like the intentions, like people aren't getting the actual, I don't know how to explain this. I think I'm doing a poor job of explaining this. I hope that it kind of makes sense, I guess. Like I always have the best intentions, whether it comes across on the internet, like either people see the good intentions and they just automatically assume that I'm perfect, which I'm not. And then any like deviation from what they think is perfection is like whoa, what's wrong with you? Blah, blah, blah. And like, I don't want to have to compete with that image of me. Or there are people who just assume bad intentions and they just think I'm a horrible person. And I don't want to have to prove myself with people with that kind of image either. And I know that someone's going to say, oh, well, what about people who are in the middle? But I don't want to have to compete with whatever. I don't want to have to find out or figure out what kind of image someone has of me from the internet and then still have to compete with that. You know what I mean? Like it's clearly, and here's the thing. Let me finish explaining this, because I know there's going to be people that are like, that doesn't make sense. But just hear me out for a second. That being said, I understand there are going to be people who like just know who I am. But clearly the idea that I'm on the internet and that I am a known person is something that I'm very clearly self-conscious about. And even on the apps, like I don't put I'm in social media. I put that I'm in marketing, because I am. What am I marketing? Me. It's not a lie. It's the truth. And if I'm clearly not expressing like, hey, this is my job, this is what I'm doing, and I can tell when people know and they're trying to get it out of me, if that makes sense. Like they ask questions that's like trying to get me to admit, oh yeah, I'm a YouTuber, and like they won't just take, oh, I'm in marketing for the answer. And that to me is like it's a red flag. Like if you know who I am and I'm very obviously not trying to talk about it and you respect that, that's fine. That's not the kind of thing that I'm trying to avoid, right? That's like you're seeing me as a person first, not a content creator, not a public image first. If those are the boundaries that I'm setting and that they're respecting that, I have no problem with that. It's the people who know who I am and use it to approach me. Okay, you see me as a public figure first, not as a person. I don't want to be seen as a public figure first. I want to be seen as a person first. Or, the people who know and they like are very clearly trying to get it out of me and are not giving the vague like, oh, I'm in marketing, oh, I'm on a business. Like they're not taking the hint, the very obvious hint that I clearly don't want to talk about it. That person doesn't respect my boundaries. And they might not disrespect all boundaries, but that's the kind of person that sees me as a public figure first than a person first. That's probably a better description than what I was saying earlier of like competing with the image of me. That's a much better description of I want to be seen as a person first, not a public figure first. Yeah, that's a much better description. I wish I thought of that before I rambled for like 5 minutes. It's fine. But that's very important to me because I've seen some of my friends in the industry end up with individuals who like just thought they had a cool job or just thought like, oh, they make a lot of money, I won't have to do as much. Like that's like the one thing that I'm like actually scared of. And like that's like a total I'm gonna get emotional again. That's like definitely a total vulnerable moment. Like that is the one thing I'm afraid of, is being preyed upon by someone like that. Yeah, I think that's the scariest thing about having to go into dating right now. And again, like I think this path and making this decision a year ago was the best thing for me, for sure. I do not regret it. I'm very happy with my choice. And I am ready to move on to different chapters. That just is something that I think about a lot and that I worry about a lot and that I'm very aware of. And I always see people online that are like, hey, I know you don't know me, but let me take you out. And I'm like, you're a stranger. Like, I'm sure you're very nice, but stranger danger does exist, you know? That's the thing. I don't want to get kidnapped. Not saying that any of these people would kidnap me, but you never know. That's scary. Like, it's very sweet and I appreciate the thought, but I don't know most of these people, and I don't know who has good intentions and who doesn't have good intentions. That is a terrifying thought. Like, do you know I always get like, do you know about the Reddit things that are about? Yes, I'm aware. I can't do anything about it. Please stop messaging me about them. I can't do anything about them. Don't look for yourself. You're gonna be scarred. It's weird men say weird, gross things. Those are the kinds of people that exist. No, I'm not gonna be meeting any random people from the internet. With like even on the apps, you don't even understand the kind of due diligence and homework I do before meeting anyone out in public. And something else that I always get asked is, as I'm going through the divorce process, what am I going to do about my name? Am I going to keep Rogers? Am I going to go back to my maiden name? Am I going to reintroduce myself with my maiden name? No, I'm not. Because of some of the weird borderline not even borderline, just unsafe things. Like there's like a subreddit about how people would kidnap me if they could, okay? Like it's not cute, it's scary. I'm not going to share my maiden name. This is my plan. I will always keep Rogers professionally, and there's a few reasons for it. First of all, I like the alliteration, okay? Rebecca Rogers, like, that sounds like a Marvel character to me, you know? I think it sounds cool. That's what I'm sticking with. Also, I left teaching a long time ago, right? Years ago. I talk about it all the time. I talk about it in podcast episodes. I talk about it in posts. I talk about it in regular long videos. To this day, I still get people that are like, you're not in the classroom anymore? When did you leave? Like, they have no idea. And that's fine. But like, why would I feel like changing my name is just going to hurt me professionally, if that makes sense. Because like, if people still years later don't even know I'm not in the classroom anymore, how are people gonna find me with this new last name? You know what I mean? I'm not interested in that hassle. But I also kind of see it as like an additional security thing. I will legally change my name. And then whenever, if I ever get remarried, I will change my name again and no one will ever know. And then I won't have to move again because someone found my address and just like thought it was funny to send me things. It's not cute, like it's scary. I don't know what the intentions are of someone that does that. That's not cute. So yeah, that's just gonna be a future security thing for me. It was the plan. That's what I decided like a little while ago. I'm trying to think of what other questions you guys asked about that I feel good about answering. Oh, a lot of people wanted to know what's going on with the cats. As you can see or hear, Milo's been asleep on me this whole episode. He's so sleepy and clingy. And Vixie usually sits in her little bed next to me when I record in my studio. Right now it's very nice outside and she's yelling at bugs on the porch. But I do have both cats with me. I was really worried about Vixie, and how she would do with the change. But honestly, like I am shocked by how quickly I became like a primary person for her. she sits on my lap, she sleeps with me, she will snuggle up into my arms in the middle of the night. If Milo isn't in my lap when I'm recording, she will try to get in my lap, or she'll get in the bed right here. And she's really healthy right now. Like we put her on, well, I put her on a diet, just giving her more healthy options instead of just dry food all the time. And she's playing more, and she's just she's happy. And that's the only thing that I really could ask for. That's the only thing that I want, and that's the only thing that I was worried about, was how were they going to do? And I mean, he's out. Yeah, I mean, I've obviously like taken them to the vet and made sure, like, hey, is there any signs of cat depression? Like, can you tell? Like, how do I gauge that? But no, the vet says that they look good, that they seem very happy and sweet and lovey, and that's all that I could really want for that, you know? Hi, I've pretty much covered like just about all these questions. There's a couple more, you know, some others is like, how have I been really taking care of myself this last year? And I think there's no right or wrong answer. I've gotten so many questions from people saying, you know, I've been going through a rough time and I don't know what to help me. What helped you? And what I've kind of had to learn to do is listen to myself, you know, listen to my body, listen to my mind. What do I need? And sometimes I need to pour myself into work, and other times I need to just sit and watch Netflix for a day. And other times I need to, you know, not talk to anyone for a bit. And other times I need to surround myself with people. And sometimes that changes every day. I have found that while my body in my mind has been in survival mode and in crisis mode, its needs can be very volatile, and I just have to kind of listen and feel for what I need to just kind of be. And I'll be honest, it kind of took me a little while to be able to internally gauge what I needed each day. But once I kind of got it, it was easier for me to read. And I think that's the best piece of advice that I can give to you, is to really listen to your body to what it needs. Because there's going to be a lot of people that give you advice about, you know, oh, talk to somebody, or, you know, keep busy, or keep to yourself. And sometimes, you know, everyone has the best intentions, of course. They want you to feel better. They want you to feel loved and looked after. But sometimes what's best for you might be different than what others think that you should be doing, or what you need to kind of feel at ease might be different. Like everyone's healing process and grieving process is going to look different. You know what I mean? Something very validating for me, and this might not be for everybody, and that is okay. Something that has helped me not feel crazy and not feel like a horrible person is I've actually taken, every now and then, not often, but sometimes I will take screenshots of a conversation and upload it to ChatGPT and just say, please psychoanalyze this conversation. Because it's very easy to ask your friends, like, hey, am I being crazy? Or am I in the wrong? Or am I XYZ? And like, your friends are going to hype you up, right? Your friends and family are going to hype you up. It is much more validating when like a literal unbiased computer is like, here's what I think. And that has, I think, been the most validating thing for me personally. So if that helps you, I'm so glad, and I love that for you. And if not, that is also okay. I also think that, you know, something else that would have made this entire experience absolute night and day is the cats. Honestly, feeling their love, and you know, the best feeling in the world is knowing that these nuggets think the safest place to sleep is on me. And that is a feeling that is so indescribable and so irreplaceable. And so if you're ever in a place where you are feeling terrible about yourself, like that to me, I think has been the most rewarding feeling of, no matter how awful someone might say that you are, no matter how awful you might feel about yourself, our little fur babies, like you're their whole world. And the fact that they see you as so safe and as like a source of love and warmth, that to me, like that changed so much for me this year. Like I needed that so badly. So that pretty much covers most of the roadmap about my life that people asked about. Some things that some miscellaneous questions that people asked, you know, what other jobs would you have gone into if you didn't go into teaching? I mean, I think I covered earlier that, you know, I thought about pre-law, I thought about psychology. There was actually during COVID, like before the year that I started social media, there was a few month span where I had the FBI job application stuff open. They even had a little banner at the top that said, like, I can't remember the exact words, but it was the equivalent of like, hey, if you're an educator, you have a lot of the internal skills that we're looking for agents, please. And I kept that up because I wanted to go into forensic psychology bad at that point in time when I was having an identity crisis about teaching because it was all online, right? And they canceled school and I just kind of sat there and no one wanted to come to class. They basically said it was optional. So of course no one came. And I was just feeling bad. It was rough. COVID was rough for everybody. And literally the school year started and within a few weeks, I started social media on accident, kind of, and then I just kind of decided, oh, my face is too public for that now. Not gonna work. Not gonna work. I also, again, like, played around with the idea of law school, ended up not doing it, but I think if it wasn't teaching, it probably would have been forensic psychology. I love psychology and sociology so much. Other questions people ask is, am I a Swiftie? Absolutely, I'm a Swiftie, 100%. Have you ever met me before? My favorite album is Midnight's. It's hard for me to pick a favorite song. Everyone always wants to know what's your favorite song, what's your favorite movie, what's your favorite artist. Like, even as a Swiftie, I'm not going to say Taylor Swift, even though she's one of my favorites. But the types of movies or songs or foods that are my favorites change every day. You know, it changes based on the mood, the vibes, who I'm with. You know, there's not just one favorite. It's the favorite for the day. It's the favorite for this vibe right here. I have a bunch of favorites, but I can't just pick one. Some of my favorites in Midnights includes Karma, Mastermind, Vigilante, S-H-I-T, I don't cuss on this channel. And even though in real life, man, y'all would be surprised. My mom yells at me all the time. I have the worst mouth. I do. I do. But on this channel, I don't. For a lot of reasons. I know I have a large range of audience. I know that I have young kids. I know that I have parents. So whether it's kids watching or parents who have kids in the background, I just don't want anyone to have to worry about that personally. So yeah, that's why that's very important to me, and I try. Sometimes I might forget to, like, make my editor take stuff out of podcast episodes from guests, but I try really hard to keep that. Like, that's something that's very important to me. What are other questions? Someone asked if I could get an all-expense-paid trip to anywhere in the world, where would it be? And I think I would go with Japan, because Japan, I want to experience Japanese culture so badly. It's so cool. I find it so interesting. I want to go so bad, but I want to do it right. Japan's a place that, like, if I'm going to go, I'm going to do it right. You know what I mean? If I'm having anywhere in the world paid for, that's where I want it to be. That's the one. That's the place. And this has already been long enough, so I'm going to try and wrap it up. Maybe we'll do, like, a check-in every 6 months. You know what I mean? It's my favorite color. I've always been a teal girly. Again, my favorite colors, depending on the day, will go back and forth between, like, pink and teal. Not together. Together, it reminds me too much of Cotton Candy and My Little Pony. I don't think pink and teal should be, like, together. Now, coral and teal, closer. But, like, I like fuchsia pink, right? Or, like, a reddish pink. And then with teal, it reminds me too much of My Little Pony or Cotton Candy or anything like that. So just depending on the day. Like, today is a teal day, for sure. Sometimes it's a pink day. You're looking at my phone case. It just depends. And then a couple last ones, just to kind of speed round. Someone asked, what are some things that people might not know about me? And I don't really know, because I try to share, like, I try to be very transparent with you guys. I know some people don't know this, even though I talk about it in some content, but I'm a huge gamer, man. I am. I have a Discord of friends. They're like they're not content creators. I met them kind of accidentally a few years ago, and they're the sweetest beans, and they do not care what my job is at all, and I love that. I value that so much. And we just play games, whether it's League of Legends, or I love the Assassin's Creed series, so that is like more solo player, but I've always loved Assassin's Creed. They just got me into Marvel Rivals, so I have to learn how to Squirrel Girl. I joke, I feel like I'm the master of yordles, because that's like a League reference. It's fine. I'm gonna stop, because then no one knows what that means. It's fine. What else people might not know about me? I feel like my outlook on content creation was definitely one that a lot of people didn't know about me, maybe. So like, I'll leave that. My favorite thing about myself is also like one of my least favorite things about myself. I am a very loyal person, but I feel like I am also loyal to a fault, and I get my feelings hurt a lot of times with people that don't have good intentions, as we talked about. So that is that, but that is something that I really value in myself, is that I stay true to myself as much as I can, and I'm a very loyal person. I'm very loyal to my people, 100%. I think the most reoccurring one is if I will ever get remarried. Like, I'm not against it. Am I of the mentality of like, oh, I'm on a timeline and I have to have this done and have a person by this time? No, I'm not. I'm not like in a rush. I'm gonna be thoughtful about it. If that is my path, sure, yeah. If I find someone that I feels values me and respects me as a person and is like a true partner, yeah, absolutely. I'm not against the idea of it, but I also am not in a place where I feel like I need that to feel complete. You know, I have my cats, I have my family, I have wonderful friends, both in content and out of content, and I like genuinely am happy. And it's been a long year of, grieving and kind of getting to that point. But, right now I feel good. I'm happy with my choices. I feel like I made the right ones. I am happy. I am healthy, and I'm just happy to be here with you guys. And thank you guys so much for being here with me. So I hope I answered. I feel like I answered like a good general amount of everything that everyone wanted to know. Again, I know there are still some things that you all want to know about that I'm just not ready to share yet, and I will keep you updated on if that will happen or not. But I just thank you guys for even just taking the time to ask. Like, I really appreciate that. Asking and just being here and listening to me ramble, even without my Adderall. I appreciate you guys so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for hearing me out, and I hope to see you guys stick around for other things. Bye, my lovelies. Mwah.